Agencies are an integral partner and part of the marketing process for many brands. But when it comes to incorporating inclusion into the work brands produce, if the agency isn't an inclusive marketing or multicultural marketing agency, infusing inclusion isn't something that always happens consistently. So that's why I was super excited to sit down with my guest today, who's a managing director at a marketing agency who's done a really fantastic job of operationalizing inclusive marketing into the way her agency shows up and delivers for clients. They've developed an inclusive mindset, and I love what they are doing and how they are approaching it. There's so many great lessons learned here. So after this short break, you'll hear my conversation with Kumi Croom, managing director at Duncan Channon. Did you know that most businesses only use 20% of their data? That's like reading a book with most of the pages torn out or paying for a coffee that's just 1/5 full. Point is, you miss a lot unless you use HubSpot. Their customer platform gives you access to the data you need to grow your business. The insights trapped in emails, call logs, and transcripts, all that unstructured data that makes all the difference. Because when you know more, you grow more. And when you get a full cup of coffee, you can do more too. But I digress. Visit HubSpot.com today. Hey, Kumi, thanks so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much, Sonia, for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, totally my pleasure. I'm excited to learn more about your experiences. But before we get too far into this, let the people know, who are you and what do you do?
Sure. My name is Kumi Croom. I am the managing director at Duncan Channon. We are a small independent agency based in California. We have offices in San Francisco, in Los Angeles. And our expertise is really using our work to connect with audiences through feelings and really connecting with them, in terms of, who we're representing in terms of our clients. So really using the funnel and strategy of what moves people emotionally to get them engaged in what we're talking about.
I love that. I once upon a time, when I was living in Argentina, I did this whole documentary, which turned into me doing like this 6-week tour of not learning, but like doing this tango choreography with the whole intention of communicating, because tango is this dance of feeling, right? With the whole intention of communicating it in marketing, we have to make people feel something for them to be moved to action. So
Exactly.
I love that you all are about that. You probably do it much more effectively than I did in my project. I had a blast, but yeah, it was quite an intense 6 weeks for me.
Oh, that sounds so exciting. I love that.
Okay, so from your perspective, why is representation in marketing important? Because you have a different perspective coming from the agency side of things. But I imagine from just my own experiences that I know that representation or not being represented has an impact on how I feel and how other people feel. But I'm curious from where you sit in your experiences, why is it important?
I really think that it's important because in order for people to really connect with any form of communication, you really need to understand, or at least try to understand a little bit about everybody. I think of, just this past holiday, week with having Beyonce's big bowl, and there's all these criticisms about her performing and putting out country music. And it's so baffling to me that people feel like you have to put yourself in certain boxes and be a monolith when no one is a monolith. Even, in marketing, when we use this term general market, there is no general about anyone,
Yeah.
right? And so I think it's really important in communication and in marketing to try to have moments of connecting with people. And I get that, as marketers, it's certainly a harder job because you want to get the masses to hear your message. But from my experience, the more you have the ability to try to authentically connect with people in some sort of way, or, with that authenticity, it could be teaching. Like there is a huge, long history and message to what Beyonce is doing in connecting people through music, which should be, something so simple, but there's a lot of history, there's a lot of context, there's a lot even just in her message in the lyrics itself. So I think that if you take the time to really try to connect with something in the form of, communication, it's really important, and that you will get more attention, more eyeballs, more ears, when you do your best to try to authentically lean in to connect with people in more than just a general sense, and assuming that we're all cattle, moving in the same direction in that same line, and everyone is exactly the same when we're not.
Yeah. How well do you feel that agencies are doing when it comes to identifying that people just naturally have these differences and then incorporating that into the work that they're producing for their clients?
Yeah, I think a lot of agencies are still really struggling. I think that coming from the side of working at agencies my entire career, I think often we're in a service business. We're here to service our clients, and the clients most of the time are selling a good, right?
Mhm.
And they want to achieve, their sales goals and reaching that bottom line. So their mindset is always towards we need to reach the masses, right? And so for agencies to try to lean in and try to authentically connect with people, that usually takes more time in terms of research, from a strategic standpoint, which means more money. And, oftentimes it feels like clients aren't really interested in taking that extra time and doing those extra steps, and oftentimes a little more money to lean in and do things like, have focus groups with people in your region areas, wherever you're trying to connect with people. And so I think it's hard for agencies to really get up on that pedestal when the clients don't care about it. If the
Yeah.
clients don't care enough about it, they did in a moment, right? You
Yeah.
know, coming
Yeah.
out of coming out of 2020, there was a interesting moment, in our history where people were trying to focus, and clients were asking even during requests for proposals. They wanted to know from agencies, how much are you spending on diversity, equity, and inclusion? And what does that mean to your organization? And that has all, not all, but a lot of that has fallen to the side. And so I think it is harder for agencies to lean into that if they really want to, or if they don't, and they're just interested in helping that client reach their bottom line, then I think that there's often times where they have misses, where they have a lot of blind sides, and then they come out with ads that can offend, and are not really connecting
Yeah.
with audiences across the board. And, so sometimes that, I think, can creep into the process.
I'm curious because you brought something up, and this is a conversation that I've had with clients and with agencies alike. And I'm always just a little bit fascinated in who would you say ultimately needs to drive the charge for marketing more inclusively? Is this something that the agencies can kind of lead the way with their clients if they're not asking for it? Or does it have to be something that the client really should be leading and sort of have this expectation of their agencies? Is it
Hmm.
like a chicken or egg thing? Like,
For sure. I think it really needs to be both. For the best case scenario, it needs to be both. But I have certainly participated and even witnessed in an agency leading the
Mhm.
effort, and bringing the clients along and showing them the benefits of it, and showing you the numbers, and oftentimes that's what makes the difference in a client's eyes. If you can show, if you will agree with this approach, here's how we project it will, enhance your key measurements, enhance your sales by being able to reach this many more people by, allowing the work to lean into more authenticity in terms of, connecting with people. It works sometimes, not all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no. Glad to hear your perspective on that. All right. So you have operationalized a culturally sensitive approach to promote representation in creative work at your agency. Can you talk a little bit about that, why you felt it was needed, and what happened as a result of you going through this process?
Sure. We've worked in the past decade quite a bit with the state of California and public health efforts. We've had several different accounts, their tobacco prevention. We're working on opioid awareness, and we've also worked with the state for the vaccine, for the COVID vaccine. And California is a very, very diverse state. We're huge, and there's all types of people here. And it's really important in the work that we do that we really try to understand mindsets, because public health work is about changing a social norm.
Mm,
And it's a little more complicated than selling a bar of soap or, a product good. Not to say that those marketing efforts aren't interesting and intrinsic in terms of, how we're trying to reach people, but in terms of health messages and how the information that we're providing to people, there are differences. We needed to understand how the African American Black audience, the Hispanic, Latino, all of the different Asian cultures and communities, and even our LGBTQ and our disabled are approached and attracted to different products like cigarettes and vaping, or just how they're affected
mhm.
with, different health and, things of that nature. So it allowed us to have to lean in and really try to understand more, and desk research in terms of understanding health benefits or side effects. And so that's kind of where it started. And, from my perspective, it's always been important to me, as I was saying to you earlier, that if you can find an authentic nugget strategically that can carry over to your creative, even if it's only most relevant to an audience, but it's something interesting and dynamic, people are going to pay attention.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that influencer mentality of like, I may not be experiencing this, or I may not have seen this before, but this is interesting information. I want to know more. And when we're able to do that, it really makes a big difference in our work. And so it was really important to me that we leaned in and created a process where we were gaining strategic learnings as well as perspectives, and so in order for us to do that, we really needed to also lean into our hiring practices
Yeah.
and who we had on our team, and how we could lean into learning from each other's perspectives and not making hiring a diverse staff just for that purpose, but really making sure that we had different understandings and perspectives, within our agency. And we continue to press to do that, so that as we do our work, from a strategy standpoint, we also have perspectives internally. And so we're giving that opportunity, to our creative teams to listen to perspectives, and some they have themselves, and it makes our work so much richer and interesting and dynamic. And the clients really do, seem to love it, knock on some wood. Um, so we just kind of really honed in tighter to what we were already doing with the state work, and really started making it a practice for every client. And we have a really wonderful internal what we call EDI team. I really feel like equity is at the core of everything with DEI, in my opinion. And our team really has taken a genuine effort to make sure that we are really leaning into our representation and trying to put practices in place and how we can approach clients who want to, let's say, have that casting be, let's have it be, a little bit of everyone kind of look, versus if we can help them understand that if we have some representation and have it be meaningful because we really want to push forward with an insight that we think is going to connect with all people, but it's most relevant to a Latino person or, a Black person or, a woman, but we feel it's really going to resonate with a larger span of audience, or it's a collective of that, right? Showing how people are affected and talking to them about, what we see and putting that back out to them, it helps people feel seen and it helps them connect. And when you feel that authenticity, you're going to be much more, available to want to learn more,
Yeah.
which is our jobs. It's our job.
Yeah. I love that you made this a process because it's something that you can execute over and over again with consistency. And I think that whenever it comes to inclusive marketing, systems and processes are a very core part of that.
For sure.
Allowing people to build inclusive brands that, show up over and over and again in this manner. You mentioned something about the process of getting these culturally sensitive insights. How do you normally go about now with the processes that you have sharing this information that you learn about people with different identities? Because I imagine as you learn in one product or one area, having that background knowledge of people who are part of the disability community feeds into what you're doing possibly on another type of project for another client. So how do you sort of make sure that everyone on the team has that type of information available to them?
Mm-hmm. It really is a core to our strategy team. They really are the hub of where that information comes from
Hmm.
and how it gets shared throughout all of the different accounts that we're working on. And it's become second nature to that team now
Okay.
that the things that we learn with one account and one, groups of audiences, how we can make that relevant to other clients and other products and, campaigns that we're working on. And really it's, in the past, I would say for sure 4 or 5 years, it has really become norm for not only our strategy team, but our creative team starts to look for that information and insights. And we often have, some creative teams that are shared
Yeah,
across clients. And so sometimes they'll remember it's become a part of our culture that more and more of our team really leans in and they recognize the value of having this information and the richness of ideas that can come from it. And so there are more people that remember that we have this information and want it and ask for it or don't need to ask for it. It's right there and we're having those discussions and or thinking, hey, you know what, we just learned this on this account. I know another account where this is going to be equally relevant and I can't wait to share with that team as well. And so
yeah,
I'm really just proud of the work that this agency has done and the people that we're bringing in that truly care about these efforts, because it makes all the difference in the world. If you have people that really don't care about it, it will fall to the wayside.
for sure. For sure. So did you receive any sort of resistance along the way as you were kind of implementing this new way of operating at the agency?
For sure. I think it had been something most in the client side where it's, clients are used to doing things the same way every time. If it's not broke,
Why are we trying to fix it?
don't fix it. um, but what we know for sure is that, in order to push ourselves and to make sure that we are doing our best work, we have to be those thought leaders. And there are times that we've also met resistance with internal folks that didn't quite understand why we were doing portions of the work. For example, like our hiring practices, right? And why do we need to do that work, and not really understanding, the full gamut of, if you are leaning into making sure that your staff has diverse perspectives, it shows up in the work that we do, therefore making us that much more knowledgeable internally versus what we have to try to seek out to even pay for, right? Ad agencies right now are really struggling with how much we're going to be paid by clients and the
Okay.
value that we bring. We have to continue to push ourselves and to push them to show that we have something relevant and different to bring to the table to help you move forward in your business. And sometimes it's harder to see that long game
Mm-hmm.
when in the moment it seems like, well, why are you changing this when internally it seemed fine? But then when we get there, the realization is, oh,
Yeah.
you know what? That really did make a big difference in our work, where at the time you don't really see it. So certainly there have been those challenges both internally as well as, with clients. We have to continuously try to keep, pushing forward. And in an environment right now where, the press is, coming out with more and more headlines about this company dropping their DEI practices, and that company, with different reasons why or why not. And so I think, it's just important for us to continue to push ourselves and seeing, the bigger picture. And even with some of those headlines, I think some corporations have dropped programs because they were hiring a role when it really is the entire company's responsibility to
Mm.
lean in to
Yeah.
diversity, equity, and inclusion. And maybe some of those folks realized that one person wasn't going to change the corporation, that it needs to be, felt across the board. Or maybe they felt like it was already there. Who knows for sure?
Mm-hmm.
But, it's probably a little bit of both. And some just deciding, I think this isn't important anymore. It's not topical anymore. No one's talking about it. So we'll just let it go, So, but I think that those companies will see that that's always not going to be the best efforts in how you're going to reach people. So,
Yeah. Okay, I've got another podcast recommendation for you. It's Augmenters, hosted by Julie Meyer and Jimmy Edgerton, and it's brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. So on this show, Julie and Jimmy dive into mentoring and explore ways to augment and refresh the mentoring environment. They're using 8 core principles that weave relevant spirit guides and diverse guests, and Julie and Jimmy use a lot of humor and practical tips to help mentors and mentees get further faster together. There's so many great episodes to tune into for this show, but one that you might find especially interesting is their latest episode, number 120, Mentoring Across Gender, Men as Allies and Mentors. Listen to Augmenters wherever you get your podcasts. One of the things that I've heard, there was a data point. I spoke with somebody who in the UK a while back for this podcast, and they talked about how in that world of agency life, it's very non-representative of the people who the end consumer that the agency is trying to reach. And the agency world does seem very homogenous, and I'm wondering, what were you able to do with your agency to increase the representation of the different types of talent that you had across different levels to help you all do better work?
mhm. It really is that same sticking to the process. So what we have done and what we continue to do is we make sure that we're casting a wide net in our hiring practices, and that we're making sure that we have at least a certain percentage of candidates that are diverse across the board.
Okay.
And of course, we're looking for talent. and things that we need for the job. But the more we're casting that wide net, we've actually found so much success in finding the really greatest people to come and work with us. And when they realize what it is that we do, they are really inspired to want to do the work, to want to stay. We have a lot of people who really love our agency, and we're really proud of that. When you're in a small to mid-size agency, the problem with that means that if you're hiring someone that's more at a junior level, there will be certain levels that you can rise up to. But if you're in an agency where people don't want to leave, that means you are going to
Right.
hit a ceiling, and that's a good and bad problem for us to have, right? And so we just really want to continue the long game of continuing to broaden our hiring practices, and when there are opportunities for us to continue to expand our growth, that we do that even at the leadership level when those opportunities happen. And we've done that. We had an ECD that had been with the agency for a very long time, very beloved. And we were able to find a new head of our creative with a group creative director role that we didn't have before, in someone with a diverse background. And the opportunity was there for us and that individual, and it really has worked out quite well. So it's not, like I said, it is a long game, and as long as we stay focused on it, it really does benefit us. And that's how we've been able to achieve decent numbers, and maintaining them, which I'm really proud of the team for.
Very cool. Kumi, this has been a super insightful conversation. I want to switch gears a little bit before we wrap up. Can you tell me about a time where a brand made you personally feel like you belonged?
Oh, that's a really good question. I feel like there were certainly a brand, that did some things in the beginning, like the Dove body image
Hmm.
that felt really smart to me. I'll be honest with you, as a Black woman, I saw a lot of comfort in, the brands of our media, the
Hmm.
Ebony's and the Essence,
Hmm.
and the brands and products that existed within those publications. Seeing these beautiful people, even though there was, marketing is a really mixed and upside down world, place, which is part of why I'm trying to do my small little part in making a difference. Whereas I saw those beautiful people and brands in those, mediums, but some of them weren't always for the best effort of us, as I'm now a part of. I think of, the cigarette ads that were in those magazines when I was a little girl were a part of the detriment to our community. And well, no, I didn't see myself in that particular instance. It was the images that did make a difference, that there was someone that, someone's that looked like me and
Yeah.
talked like me. And it is a part of the reason why I do what I do, because I hope that I'm not, naive, but it just felt to me, and as an adult, that we could do better in not just seeing the faces, but really living the experiences in how we're communicating with people. And I think there's some brands that are doing well, but I think a lot more work to do in not stereotyping and, living authentic self. I'm sorry, I can't think of a brand that specifically nailed it for me.
It's
I don't know.
okay. But it's interesting that you brought up like those magazines like Ebony and Essence. I remember reading them like cover to cover growing up and just being excited every month to get them, because just seeing yourself for people who look like you, it provides a different, it impacts how you think about and view yourself and what you think is possible. So in a
Exactly.
way that like we're not thinking about it in terms of the words representation and all that kind of stuff, but we know that we navigated more towards those types of magazines versus other types of magazines that weren't on subscription at our household, right? So there's a reason
Right.
for that.
Yes, exactly. I think, what I'm reflecting on is that there were certainly, brands that I remember, with faces and, in places that looked familiar to me, but I don't know that I actually can recall anyone where I was like, "Oh yeah, that
Yeah.
was me 100%." But there was elements of it, and I just think, let's continue to do the work and
Yeah.
push forward.
For sure. For sure. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about you and your work that you're doing at your agency?
Sure. Well, you can find me at duncanchannon.com, also on LinkedIn at Kumi Croom.
All right. I will drop links to those in the show notes. Any parting words of wisdom for marketers and business leaders who want to do a better job of operationalizing different aspects of inclusive marketing so that they can deliver it consistently and see the results that they like?
Yeah, I would say that, make sure that your strategy and your creative teams are leaned into the nuances of audiences and really doing the work of understanding how people think and feel about topics, brands. It really creates such insight for really great work to be achieved. And I think that marketers need to continue to lean into that space and continue to push to have perspectives on the teams. It's really important. It is a long game, but don't quit that game. It's really worth playing. So I hope that everyone can continue efforts or even start them if they haven't, because it really does make a difference in your work and in your bottom line for your clients, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Kumi, for stopping by.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That's it for today's episode. If you like this show, I would so love it if you would share it with a friend, colleague, and or your network. It really does go a long way towards helping more people discover the show. Another quick question for you. Are you getting the Inclusion and Marketing newsletter? If not, really, what are you even doing? Each week, I send news, insights, resources, and other commentary to help you attract and retain a bigger, more diverse, and fiercely loyal customer base. Go to inclusionandmarketing.com/newsletter to get signed up. I'll also drop a link for it in the show notes for you below so you can access it easily. Until next time, remember, everyone deserves to have a place where they belong. Let's use our individual and collective power to ensure more people feel like they do. Thanks so much for listening. Talk to you soon.